Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, the most popular Canadian travel podcast in the former Yugoslavia. Can you believe that?
What? We're not in former Yugoslavia.
We're everywhere.
Are we?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in Canmore, Alberta, Canada.
We're the most popular podcast in the former Yugoslavia. Canadian travel podcast.
Oh, I had no idea. Thanks for listening, former Yugoslavia. Anyways, I'm Amanda.
I'm Brian.
And we're your hosts.
And today we're talking about... Do you want us to...
No, you go ahead.
Okay. We're talking about our favorite hostels in Europe.
Yeah, so we're going to be basically going over what we've deemed to be our top 10 hostels from our 3-month backpacking trip in Europe. So to begin with, what sort of makes a hostel a top 10 hostel in your mind?
Well, so there's a whole bunch of... I guess there's different things that make me think a hostel was good. You have it really depends on what you're looking for and where you are. And then what you're looking for is obviously changing over time. So when I look back on a hostel and think that was a good experience, it could be because, maybe I was feeling lonely going in, and then there was a really good atmosphere where everyone was socializing and there's lots of parties and stuff like that. Maybe I'm feeling exhausted going in, and the hostel's we're in a dorm room with other people who are in a more relaxed mode. The hostel's quiet. The hostel's nice, clean facilities. Mm-hmm. Maybe offers some nice stuff to do in the city, or maybe I'm feeling particularly strapped for cash and there's a ton of free stuff. So I think for me, it always depends. And so on this list of hostels we have, there are some that if you're evaluating them all through one paradigm of what I think is a good hostel, some of them don't make that list, but
yeah,
different things at different times made them good experiences for me.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate to that. At the same time, I think there's some qualities that I look for in all hostels in terms of whether it's a good or bad hostel. For me, the ones that stick out in my mind as being my favorites generally had pretty good beds. We were talking beforehand and Ryan said he can't really remember a lot of the beds in the hostels, but that's definitely something that's pretty important to me is a good bed. I liked having something where my belongings are fairly secure. It was easy to secure my belongings. And the hostel felt like a safe area, somewhere where I could just be and I wasn't worried about my stuff and myself, as well as I think location is huge for me. As a backpacker, you don't have a vehicle, and it's nice to just be able to walk to see everything, which is difficult in bigger cities. But I think for the most part, there are a lot of hostels with really good locations. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. So I guess my point before was just that.
Depending on your state of mind.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so over time, I think when first started traveling, maybe there's things I was looking for in terms of a social aspect, with a good party every night, versus now I seem to be leaning more towards cleanliness and order and peace in the hostel.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think one thing that's kind of universal among good hostels is organization.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really, really good point. It's nice when you show up into a hostel and regardless of the time that it is there, they know you're coming. They've got a bed ready for you. It's not a huge process because there are some places that are just disorganized. They can't find your booking. The bed's not ready for you. And I mean, you have to take that with a grain of salt because if you show up at 7 a.m. and their check-in time is 1 p.m. and it's super busy, you're not going to get a bed until that's ready. But if I show up at 5 p.m. and, they haven't put you and I in the same room and we book together, that's just frustrating to me. That's poor organization.
Well, and so there can be different hostel different beliefs on what's important to a traveler. So a hostel that's really party focused, or a hostel that's really focused on people having a relaxing place to be. But they can both be organized in that. I know one of our favorite hostels is a really big party hostel, but they're very organized about it. Like, oh yeah, breakfast starts at this time, it goes to this time, you get this and this. We're doing a party boat at X time and you can go do that. This is happening.
Should we just dive into that since it's kind of on the top of our list of things to talk about?
Yeah, let's do it.
So that hostel that Ryan's referring to is actually called the Rising Cock. Yep, that's the name. It's in Lagos, Portugal, which is in the southern part of Portugal on the Algarve coast. It's absolutely beautiful there. Were you going to say something?
No. Maybe. I don't know. Is it called Algarve or Algarve?
I wasn't too sure. Is it Algarve?
I don't know.
It's spelled Algarve. My Portuguese isn't very good. You can book with the Rising Cock on Hostel World or Hostel Bookers, and I think directly through their website as well. And this hostel is super, super popular. It books out really far in advance. So it's definitely somewhere that I would plan to go to if you're interested. On Hostel World, it's got party in the name. If you're looking to sleep and relax and have a quiet time in Lagos, do not stay at this hostel. One of the great things about it is that all the rooms are unique. The doors don't really lock. So it's really open. It's personable. The walls have fun pictures on them, like painted on them. Really cool balcony where everyone gets together. People just play music and talking and chatting, and people go to the bar together. And it's kind of like first year university living in residence, where it's like everybody just gets together every night and has a really good time. And then the next morning, Mama, who owns the hostel, makes like fresh crepes for everyone with fruit, and there's a hangover tea, and it's just a really, really cool place to be.
Yeah. So like that one touches on like a couple categories that I think are you use to think of a good hostel, like distinct. It's like a unique thing, which I think really adds to your experience at a hostel. Really social atmosphere, makes you feel at home. Like even she calls herself Mama. So like that's really what they're going for, like a homey vibe. Mm-hmm. So with like the partying, so that like partying does seem to lead to more memories because it's like a more unique thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like fairly clean and well set up, but I guess the thing that's sacrificed, like if your expectation is to read a book, probably not the place for you. And also like it's not the best for security because it is a popular place, and we're good about like making sure people
had the wristband for the hostel.
Yeah, had the wristband in the hostel. But even while we were staying there, people had things stolen, and
it's definitely not the place to leave like your brand new MacBook Pro out on your bed, because people are just coming and going through their rooms, and it is very much like a frat house. And so it's super open in that way, and definitely something to keep in mind. I would 100% recommend this hostel though, if you're looking to have a good time in Lagos. We actually stayed partly at the Rising Cock and then partly at another hostel in Lagos called Gold Coast Backpackers, which I think was equally as good in a really different way. It wasn't as much of a party hostel, yet it still had a rooftop
and it still had
patio. It still had the social vibes.
Because I think I guess it'd be people going to Lagos. Lagos is like southern Portugal, so it's beach, beautiful weather, and people really go there to party. So it seems like most of the hostels do have an atmosphere where people know they're there to party, like kind of like a residence and university feel. Because at Gold Coast, like even in the thing, you can clearly in their like Hostel World descriptor, it's like I think it says like this is not a party hostel or something like that. Yeah,
and it's not like quote unquote party hostel, but people are definitely there still to party and have a good time. And the rooms are just a little quieter. Like they did have a quiet like couch area where you could either like watch movies or read or like big book exchange. So it's kind of more of a balance. I'd say a little bit newer.
Yeah, it seemed like cleaner. But still, yeah, everyone was getting together to socialize. I guess like a little bit less distinct than the Rising Cock.
Yeah, definitely less distinct. Unique. Like it kind of more is just a great hostel in a city, whereas the Rising Cock is super, super unique.
Yeah, so thinking about unique hostels, there was one in Switzerland that's also like pretty widely well known around Europe called Balmer's Hermitage in Interlaken.
Yeah, and Interlaken is known as the adventure capital of Europe, quote unquote. I didn't just make that up. And the best way that I can describe Balmers is it's kind of like summer camp. Like that's what it reminds me of, is the bunk beds are like big and wooden, and even some of the rooms just have like these big wood frame benches, and all of the windows are covered with like checkered kind of cloth curtains, and then everything's just wooden. It just reminded me of being at summer camp. Did you get that feel from it?
Yeah, I guess I'd never gone to summer camp, so but like that's kind of the vibe they're going for. It's like a cool facility because there's like different buildings, kind of like a courtyard thing, and it's all like this kind of like traditional like Swiss thing.
Yeah, and they've got a massive living room, a big area for eating. They've got a kitchen, although the kitchen's actually super small. I think we talked about this in our Switzerland episode about how we ended up making some pretty good friends while we were there because we were just constantly waiting for dishes. But in saying that, I think that I was fine with that because we did connect with those people.
Yeah, it's like kind of one of those, like, it's a downside of it being such a popular, cool place is that it's very busy. So
yeah, definitely.
You got to wait for stuff. It was kind of fun because like there's a lot of typical hostel travelers, but also like families and like a lot of Korean people who were in Interlaken specifically because of the popular mountains.
Yeah, it was definitely not just your typical backpacker crowd, I guess, which was kind of cool. It's interesting being in a kitchen when a family's making dinner and we're there as well. Just at that point, it was pretty different from what we'd experienced at other hostels, and I actually really loved the vibe that having so many different demographics brought.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that it seems like the location within a city is a thing that makes a hostel good or not, but also like which city, because Interlaken has a bunch of good hostels that have, like, there was one we were kept hearing about while we were at Balmers about this other hostel that's got like this gigantic slide and like a whole bunch of crazy extreme stuff to do at the hostel, and like people were going over there to do. So we were talking about Lagos has like a couple really good hostels. Interlaken has a couple really good hostels, and like it's just, they're really cool cities, so lots of people going there.
Yeah, totally.
And that really adds to your experience. Like if you're going to like, I don't know, Baghdad, like I'm sure
you haven't been there.
I'm sure the hostels aren't great, but like if you're in Lagos, the hostels are good.
Maybe not the best example, but I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah, so I think like you can have a good hostel in a bad place that you probably you still have to have a good time.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Does that make any sense?
Balmers was pretty cool because they actually had an underground bar as well that was below the hostel. Because we were there for hiking and whatnot, we opted out of doing that. But it still has sort of that social party atmosphere if you choose to have it. And it's also a place where you can relax and sleep. And the front desk is really great about organizing any types of extreme or unextreme activities that you want to do while in Switzerland, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, so it's got like the party thing, but it's kind of hidden in a way.
Yeah.
It's like you can get different things from it.
Yeah, definitely. So the next place on our list is the Kinlay House, which is in Dublin in Ireland. This place is really cool. You walk in and there's like Irish murals painted all over the walls. And I just instantly loved like the look of it as soon as we walked in. And it's cool because you walk up this like pretty high set of stairs, and when you get up, the dormitories are all like on like one sort of hallway depending on which floor you're on, but then they've all got the key passes to get in, so you have to swipe your key sort of the way a hotel would be to get into your room. So it's cool because it's got sort of like an old-fashioned hostel feel, but then something really modern in terms of security. Yeah,
having the electronic locking doors is a really nice feature for a hostel, because it's awkward when like the hostel door does lock, but like you have a key or something and you've got to lock it yourself, and you're like, you don't know if the people who were in the room have taken their keys or not. So it's easy when it's just like an electronic thing. And
yeah,
you're just going to lock.
Just depending on who's in the room with you. Like some backpackers are really conscious on locking up their stuff and locking the door to the hostel, and security is a huge value for them. Whereas other people are traveling with very little valuables and don't really mind having their clothes kind of out and their possessions out, and they don't bother to lock the door. So it is nice when it's just kind of decided for you, so you don't have to have that kind of awkward situation with other backpackers and maybe compromise your values for somebody else's. So I definitely liked that feature. There was a huge dining hall. They provided a free breakfast. I don't remember it being anything special, but there was a kitchen where you could cook. So I think we took some like free cereal and bread and then made eggs and whatnot as well.
Yeah, and that's like having a kitchen that was usable and like big enough that enough people could use it was a big thing for us with hostels.
Yeah, and it's really nice to have a kitchen in any hostel, but particularly where you're somewhere where it's expensive. And staying in the tourist area of Temple Bar, which is Kinley House is pretty close to Temple Bar, within a 10-minute walking distance. It is expensive to go eat out all the time. And that was the same thing with Switzerland. Switzerland's prices are through the roof crazy. Like groceries are expensive, but eating out is just, it's really, really expensive. So it's nice to have a kitchen in those places where it's not always affordable to eat out 3 meals a day.
Yeah, and have a kitchen that's actually usable. So like we were able to use Kinley House's kitchen, but like there's quite a few hostels we stayed at where the kitchen's so small that it's like you're gonna have to wait around and kind of fight with people for stove space. It makes kind of an unpleasant experience to cook yourself food.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also some kitchens that say they're kitchens, but they don't really have usable dishes, or their dishes are really old and gross, or people haven't done the dishes and they're all really dirty, and it's just a huge turnoff to actually cook your own meals then. So Kinley House is great. Everybody washed their dishes, it seemed. Lots of dishes, tons of stoves available for people. I don't think we ever had a problem there with cooking. We cooked there a few nights in a row.
Nope. So the next one on our list is the Red Nest Hostel in Valencia.
Yeah. Valencia, I think, may get forgotten a little bit by people who are traveling around Spain, just because, you know, there's lots of bigger places like Barcelona, Madrid. Valencia is about an hour south of Barcelona, and I think it's 100% worth the visit.
Is it only an hour south of Barcelona?
I think it was just an hour. Maybe it was 2 or 3 hours. Somewhere between 1 hour and 4 hours.
Somewhere between Barcelona and Gibraltar.
No, it's significantly closer to Barcelona than Gibraltar, I think. But it's a little bit south of Barcelona. It's a smaller city. It's quieter. The beach is quieter. The city's calmer. Everything is really, really close in walking distance. And Red Nest Hostel is so cool. What did you like about that hostel?
So I think that stood out about that hostel for me was kind of the socializing part of it. Also, like Valencia is like a super cool city. It's got like, it's pretty small in the core, so you can walk around it, and it's unique and kind of like confusing, which is fine. It's a bit of a maze, but then it's also got the beach that you can go down to that's a little ways away. But so just for the hostel, like that's like if I went into that hostel looking to like really relax and catch up on some sleep, that probably wouldn't have been a good experience. But I wouldn't say it's a party hostel, but just we ended up in a big dorm room with a whole bunch of Spanish guys who were there from like, I think they were there from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately we were only with them one night.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be the one night that we were choosing to sleep. They were just disruptive for half an hour-ish.
They were throwing things at each other in the middle of the night. But.
Yeah, it's actually pretty ridiculous. I think it's the one time I woke up when they came in and they were just like kind of grunting in Spanish. And then one guy took the ladder off of the bunk bed and was like whacking another guy with it, which is really ridiculous. I don't think that's saying anything bad on the hostel itself. I mean, hostels draw in all types of people, mature, immature, drunk, not drunk. One of the things that I really loved about Red Nest Hostel is that they had a really cool breakfast area. So like kitchen, like some benches, like area to eat. And then you could go upstairs and there was kind of like a living room hangout area with like couches and more tables. And then there was like a balcony on the roof where you could go outside. And at night, basically that whole area turned into like a party zone. Like there was a bar, lots of people out drinking. And the hostel did lots of cool stuff like free pub crawls and free walking tours. It was really, really good place to engage and meet with people.
And I think the thing that we've noticed going to a bunch of hostels is if they have like kind of a happy hour thing, it really brings the hostel together. So at that hostel, there was a happy hour and we were hanging out on the roof drinking and like meeting some new Irish friends, and then got to get to know a whole bunch of people because everyone's up in that lofty area hanging around.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Happy hours are great because backpackers are looking for that affordable option to do things. And so people will come back for a 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 5 p.m. happy hour. And it's a really good way to meet people at the hostel. And that was one thing that I definitely loved about that hostel, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like, when I think about staying at the Red Nest in Valencia, like, I think I have, like, really fond memories of it. And I think that I really, like, feel the need for, like, connection with people. And, like, we got to meet up and have, like, a cool social experience with a lot of, like, people that we connected with. So,
yeah, for sure. I liked that as well.
And that's one of the things that's tough about, like, rating hostels or even reviewing hostels. So much of your experience is dependent upon things that are out of the hostel's control. Like if you get nice people with you at the same time, if there's nice weather, if there's something weird going on in the city, like maybe there's construction outside that they have no control over, and that's going to drive down their ratings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's a really, really good point. Yeah, I agree with that completely. So the next hostel on our list is Equity Point Hostel, which was in Barcelona. And this hostel was just off Las Ramblas, which is like the major street in Barcelona, would you say?
Yeah.
Major tourist street. It's like pretty famous. If you've looked at photos of Barcelona, you've probably seen photos of hundreds of thousands of people walking up and down Las Ramblas. It can be pretty dangerous. There are a lot of pickpockets there. Barcelona's pickpockets claim to be the best pickpockets in the world. So definitely be careful there. But Equity Point Hostel is off that street. So it's nice because it still provides like a quieter sleep, but it's close enough to the action that you can get there pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. So did you just like it because of the location or?
No, I liked the location. I also liked the setup of it. We were in a good sized dorm room, and then there was a really cool area where they served free breakfast in the morning. And then at night, that area turned into a bar. So pretty like chill area to get some cheap drinks and meet some people. And then they also had lots of different options for like free walking tours, pub crawls, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the breakfast was pretty mediocre, I'd say. And that's another thing that like really it can improve or lessen your hostel goodness factor, is if the hostel goodness factor, yeah, it's a new index I've created.
I like it.
If it's like a good breakfast or not.
Yeah, so the basic European hostel breakfast is toast,
hard-boiled eggs.
I think hard-boiled eggs is on like the gooder, like the gooder side, the better side
of the goodness factor index.
Yeah, so I think like if I remember Equity Points correctly, it was toast, cornflakes, like cereal.
So many places have cornflakes.
Coffee, tea, and some fruit. And when I say fruit, it's like apples, bananas, oranges.
And funky milk that never needs to be refrigerated.
Yeah, they use like in Europe, I don't even know, is it powdered milk?
I don't know. I don't actually know the mechanics of why
there's
milk
like
in
milk
Europe
that
is never
need
refrigerated.
To be in the fridge, though. It's kind of weird. But I mean, if you're not picky, it's a decent breakfast. And then when you've got hard-boiled eggs, like you get enough food to get you through to your next meal.
Yeah.
Put it in like your $20 a night bed. I think it's decent.
Yeah. And it was so Equity Point in Barcelona is a pretty big hostel. And like in general, I think we didn't usually tended to like smaller hostels better than larger hostels, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's easier to meet people when you're in a smaller hostel just because there's less people and there's usually a smaller like living room, social area, and it's just easier to get to know people. It's not as uncomfortable and kind of intimidating.
So what about Equity Point in Barcelona overcame the big factor?
I think location was definitely a huge one. Like it was so close to everything. And then I think being in a group of 3, because we actually met up with a friend from Canada while we were over there. And so having that extra person, I think, just made it easier to meet people. I don't know if that's just like in my head or not, or if that's actually how it was. Does that make sense? Like,
well, I think like if you're,
we felt like more of a group than just like a pair.
Yeah. And I think that's like, if you are traveling in a group, you have like each person meets people and then you meet more people because you're more people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of cool at Equity Point. I'm not sure how many of them there are in like the Spain, Portugal area, but we actually stayed at a sister hostel in Lisbon, which was also really nice. So definitely would recommend the Equity Point brand of hostels for sure.
Yeah, I think Lisbon's kind of a cool city because if you look on like Hostel World, you see like 97, 97, 97, 97. Just so many good rated hostels. So I think in Lisbon, if we did go back, I might try a different hostel because I've heard good things about some other ones. But
yeah, Equity Point was pretty cool though. I think we stayed there because we were overwhelmed with the selections on Hostel World, and we're like, oh, we stayed at this other one in Barcelona. It was nice. Let's just stay here. It was a good choice. Another big hostel that we stayed at was actually Meninger. I don't know if I'm butchering that word, but it was in Salzburg, and so it was Meninger City Center. And it was pretty big hostel, dorm room style, but all the dorm rooms had their own bathroom, and they kind of had the lock and key like a hotel, and it did have way more of a hotel feel. I think it had an elevator and like 9 floors.
Yeah, it was like a backpacker hotel. I think there was actually hotel rooms in it too.
Yeah.
So the things that are distinct in my mind is that they had a Maroon 5 CD playing the entire time we were staying there.
Hashtag awesome. Kidding. But not really. Did you like that CD?
No, not
you hated it, didn't you? How did it become one of your best hostels then?
Well, I don't know. So like it is big and not very social. We had met someone in Munich who was also staying there, so we kind of hung out with him a bit. We
met people though, other people as well. Not like close friends, but we met people. They've got a massive like dining area, and then they play The Sound of Music once a week or every night.
I don't know.
They play The Sound of Music because Salzburg's where The Sound of Music is from. So it's like any event like that is a really good way to get a hostel together. And there's round circular tables, and they serve pretty well-priced dinners.
Yeah, but so there's a difference. I don't know where the line is, but like if there's 20 people in a hostel, you kind of feel like you should say hi to everyone. It's like that close versus like, or if you're in the common areas, you kind of feel like you should be talking to the people. And if it's big, then even in the common areas, people really stop talking to each other and just go about their own thing.
Yeah.
So I found that Manager was kind of like that, where we were sitting around watching this movie and everyone kind of had their own table and wasn't really associating with each other. That said, the things I like about it were cleanliness. It was like super clean, super nice. It was nice to, like, after being through like Spain, France, and some other places where you're in kind of more of a hostel that's geared towards socializing and having fun. Those aren't typically the cleanest places. So it was nice to have like a nice washroom and like a nice bed and like what you felt like were really like clean sheets, and it smelled nice.
Yeah, that's very true.
And the lobby, kitchen, everything was like very clean, very nice, and quiet. So it was like a nice refresher. So I definitely recommend it if you were looking for, if those are your values. If you were maybe by yourself,
looking to meet people
by yourself, or maybe with a friend looking to really like party and meet people, I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And that's a really, really good point. We had come from Germany to Salzburg, and we actually stayed in 2 really big dorm rooms in Berlin and Munich. And I think getting into a dorm room where it was only, I think it was 6 or 8 beds, our own bathroom, super clean. I remember now the sheets being super crisp and just like they reminded me of when I was younger and my mom would do like wash the bed, and then I'd get in at the end of the night, and it was just so awesome. And that's what it reminded me of. So that's, yeah, I still really liked that hostel despite it being more hotel-like and bigger. One that was kind of sort of bigger but had more of a unique feel was Arci Rossi in Florencia. Did I say that right?
I don't know. My Italian's not very good. I'm going to go with no, though.
Okay, it's in Florence.
How do you pronounce CH in Italian?
Arci Rossi?
I don't know. Anyways, but that was like a fairly large hostel.
It was large, but Yeah, large but small-ish.
And so that one, like Florence is an amazing city. It's one of the cities that's like, when you're traveling around Europe and you meet people, it's a favorite city for a ton of people. There aren't too many people you're hearing like, oh, Florence is so overrated.
I know you rarely hear that about Florence. Yeah, it's cool because you can walk the whole city, the gelato, the food. I mean, it's Italy. It's amazing. Lots of really cool art there. And Archie Rosie kind of kept up with that. They super unique hostel, like statues and art everywhere.
Little courtyard, which is cool.
Yeah, a little courtyard where you could hang out. Really beautiful rooms. And because of the size of it, you could get a pretty good view from, I think, a lot of the rooms of the city. And the city's just, it's magical there.
Yeah, and one of the things that was cool about that is they have a good free breakfast and then really good cheap dinner meals. So like for us in Europe, a big value was saving money. So having that option at the hostel was cool. They had like pizzas that were cheap and pasta dishes, which wasn't great for Amanda being gluten-free, but...
They had some salad options as well, though. I remember being pretty content, and I was pretty happy to save some money on my 3 meals of the day at our hostel so I could splurge on gelato for dessert.
Yeah, so that was like one of the big things there was the free breakfast of like good quality and dinner options.
Meals.
And those are things that you really appreciate while you're there and can lure you there, but they don't seem to stick in memory that much.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
Like when you're thinking about my favorite hostels, you're tending to think about, I think, social interactions more so.
Definitely. I think Archie Rosie was recommended to us by somebody as we were traveling, and I was really happy that we booked in there because we met a few people from our room that we ended up going out with. I can't remember if it was a
American Girl.
Yeah, I can't remember. Was that pub crawl organized through the hostel?
Don't think so.
Okay. Either way, Archie Rosie, it's a good one.
It was funny being in Florence too because the Jersey Shore was happening there at like the same time.
Are you actually going to admit this on the podcast?
I like Jersey Shore at that time. I've never found like more productive things to occupy my brain with.
What did we do while we were in Florence?
Well, we watched the Jersey Shore, Florence, and we're like, oh, we've been there.
And then we went to find the pizza shop that they worked in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did do that. It was good pizza.
It was good pizza. Embarrassing moment for today. And continuing onwards from Florence. It was actually the second hostel that we stayed at in our backpacking trip in Europe was Astor Hyde Park Hostel in London. And I've stayed at a few other hostels in London. And Astor Hyde Park isn't the nicest, but we definitely had a good experience there.
Yeah, that's one where, like you were saying at the start, location's a big thing, and that has a pretty sweet location. It's like...
right beside Hyde Park.
Yeah. Which
is a massive, cool green space.
And
really close to Whole Foods.
Some cool, like they have a bar down, it's like the kitchen, I don't even know if it's a bar. It's like the kitchen hangout area, and they've got a pool table, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And they also had an all-you-can-drink event, which is pretty cool for a hostel to do.
Yeah, and I mean, there wasn't a ton of us there, but we had a really good time with the people that were there. I mean, maybe there was 10 of us to begin with and 6 of us by the end of the night, ourselves included. Did they do free breakfast there? I think they did.
Don't remember.
Maybe they didn't. The rooms are pretty nice, though. There was bathrooms inside of the rooms. Bunk beds were fine. They had like locks underneath them, like these big kind of cages that you just shoved your stuff in and then locked it up, which was nice. A little bit of an older building. When I went back to England with my friend Courtney, we stayed at a YHA, which is a huge, huge brand across Europe for hostels. And we stayed at the YHA London downtown one. And that one was definitely nicer in terms of like nicer bedding, newer mattresses, like nicer facilities, but not as fun for sure. Like the social atmosphere was way less fun than Astor Hyde Park. So it's kind of tossed. That's one of those things where it depends what you're looking for. Being at the beginning of our trip, we were definitely looking for socializing, meeting people, that sort of thing. So that's definitely a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
The last one is the Brew Bar Hostel in Cork.
Yeah, and so this one's top rated on Hostel World. It's kind of, I think it's Hostel World recommendation. Sorry, it's not top rated. It's a Hostel World recommendation. And was it also recommended in Lonely Planet?
It was like recommended in the guidebook we were using at the time.
Which guidebook?
Which was like a Let's Go book, which was atrocious.
Atrocious?
Okay, terrible.
Not the best.
Yeah, but so it was pretty good hostel. I think one of the big defining features of it was like there's a bar there. It's cool. It's awesome. And we weren't really in the partying mood when we were there.
No, we'd just come from Dublin and staying at Kinlay House. We'd gone out to Temple Bar. You'd been drinking a lot of Guinness. I'd been drinking a lot of cider. I think I was kind of dealing with the cider belly. But they had a kitchen in the basement, which was nice. And then a really, really popular bar. And then the hostel itself was pretty good. We stayed in a nice dorm room. I think one of the things for us, it's definitely like the hostel itself is cool. But when we stayed there, it was pretty quiet. So I feel like we didn't get a full-on brew bar hostel experience.
So why is it on the favorites list?
I think because of location. It was one of the few places in Europe that we could walk to from the train station, which was really cool. Train stations were usually pretty far away. It had really good restaurants all around it, super close to everything. They helped us organize getting to and from the Blarney Castle, which was awesome. They arranged for us to get to the airport, really helpful staff, good facilities.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things interesting about that is like very highly recommended in the guidebook we have. And it was good, but it wasn't like amazing.
That's why it's number 10 on our list.
Yeah. And it makes, like, I think the idea of using guidebooks for hostels now is like, I think it's pretty irrelevant. Or outdated. I don't know what word I'm looking for.
I think outdated, I mean, when you've got something like Hostel World where people have the opportunity to leave a review after leaving, which could have been the day that you're looking at the booking, it's just so up to date. So when you look on there, it's like, oh, this is what somebody thought of this hostel yesterday, the day before, today. And then you can go on the next day and there's another review and it's like, this is what somebody is thinking this very moment. Whereas a guidebook could be, 2 years old and super outdated.
Yeah. And I think, so I'd definitely recommend you to stay at any of the hostels we mentioned in this podcast. But one of the themes throughout was that what you want in a hostel is going to change over time and it's going to be different than what other people want. So when you are looking to book a hostel and you're on Hostel World, I definitely recommend sifting through some reviews instead of just looking at the number, the rating, and trying to see what people are actually saying about it and saying oh, this hostel sucks. People are partying all the time. Maybe that's a good thing for you. Or this hostel sucks. It's super quiet, which may be exactly what you're looking for. So I think that's a great tool instead of just looking at the ratings, dig into the views and kind of sift them for what you think matches up with your values.
Yeah, completely. I 100% agree with that. When I first started using Hostel World, and I was even using Let's Go and Lonely Planet a little bit for hostels, which I no longer do, I was looking a lot at just the ratings. It was oh, it's only 81%, we're not going to stay there. And now I've gone into looking into what people are saying about it and why they're rating that, because maybe that's, it's 81% to 8 out of 10 people, but 2 people have really, really loved it. And, we're more aligned with those other people. So it's definitely worth it to go on and read what people are saying. And you can also see where people are coming from and their demographics. So it's really interesting to see, if somebody's 18 reviewing it and you're 30, maybe your values aren't aligned with that 18-year-old who's looking for something completely different on their trip. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking. Mm-hmm. We'll put all of the links to the hostels that we recommend on the show notes at www.theworldwanders.com. If you have any hostels that you think shouldn't be on the list, should be on the list, shoot us an email at theworldwanderspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.